Hi guys and Jenny, I've got a quick video for you here. Today we're talking about one of these things down here. I'll just quickly grab it out for you. We're talking about one of these things. It's an OBD2 reader, but this is specifically a Bluetooth one. They're cheap off eBay, and I'll explain why you should get one. So one of the reasons I love this is you put this in your car, and if your OBD2 port faces the floor or something like that, which in most cars it does, it's got 3 LEDs on it. I think it's maybe got a red one, a yellow one, and maybe a green one. But it's not bright enough to dazzle you or put you off when you're driving anyway. So you go up to your car, you stick that into the OBD2 port, and it just sits there. And these ones only work with Android phones because they're Bluetooth, whereas I think that Apple phones, they need Wi-Fi to work, I think. But one massive advantage of this is you got this in your car, it's just sitting there plugged in. You've always got an OBD2 reader in your car, and that is super handy. Last week somebody was borrowing my car, they were starting my car, and it pulled up a fault. And this is all, they're all really worried, your car's got a check engine light in it, I hope it didn't break it. I was like, no, it's cool. Jumped in my car, checked the codes, it was fine, cleared them, boom, done. If not, I wouldn't have known what it is. I would have to wait till I got home. That could have been potentially, annoying and or expensive. It was lucky that it was just something simple, but because I had an OBD2 reader, I could tell if it was urgent or not, where I should be driving the car or not, what it was, just very quickly. I mean, it took me seconds to read the codes, so that's super handy. The second thing as well is that these things are cheap. I think they're maybe between £5 and £10. You can buy them from China, you can buy them from the UK, you can buy them from Amazon, you can buy them from eBay, but they're cheap. They're really, really cheap, and that's a massive advantage. I think the ones that the Apples use, I think they use Wi-Fi. I think they may be about £10 to £15, but for an OBD2 reader, it's still not a bad price. The other thing I like about this as well is because it runs from your phone. So long as you got your phone on you, you'll always have an OBD2 reader, obviously, so long as it's plugged in. And my phone's something I carry pretty much everywhere. I've used OBD2 readers that plug into computers, especially if it's something more specialised like Star or BMW Impa or Porsche Durometric or TechStream for Toyotas or whatever like that. Obviously, there's certain things that this can't do that you need specialist equipment for, but those are a massive pain to get working. This, you plug it in, it connects to your Bluetooth, which takes a minute or two, and then you can use different software. I think you get Torque and Free Car Scanner Tool, and there's like a million of these apps. They're all very similar, but it's super easy to set up on your phone. There's no messing about with dodgy Chinese cables and cracked firmwares and all this stuff. If you've used any kind of these funny cables from eBay for manufacturer specific cables, some of them can be a right pain. Sometimes you need to run Windows XP, and who's dual booting their laptop? Nobody's doing that. So these are really handy for that. So one really handy thing about this OBD2 reader is it'll give you information on your car that your car won't necessarily give you. So for example, your battery voltage. Your car will tell you if your battery's dying sometimes, or it'll be slow to turn on, but this will tell you exactly at what voltage your car is at. So if it's at 13.2 volts, the car's happy. But if it's, if your battery's really discharged at 10 volts, this will tell you. Is your alternator charging? This will tell you, because before your car knows it, this will tell you the exact values, so what voltage is my car pumping? Is it a 14.4 or whatever? Another thing with this really handy is in the temperature. So I bled the coolant on this car a few weeks ago, and also, as I was bleeding it, you can use the temperature gauge there, but it's really inaccurate. The temperature gauge doesn't move until it's at 48 degrees Celsius, and the middle point, or just below the middle point where it's meant to usually sit, that can be anywhere between 60 degrees and maybe 85 degrees, something like that. So, it doesn't really give you an accurate thingy. This car's meant to run at about 77 degrees. By using this, I could get the exact values. I knew what the car was doing exactly. I could tell if the car was overheating, if it was not bled properly, etc., etc. And that goes into other things. So, for example, if your thermostat's failing, you can tell if your thermostat's failing. You can plug this in, and then you can say, okay, well, my coolant temperature should be, 88 degrees, let's just say, but it's only 75, or it's only 60. Therefore, I know my coolant temperature, my coolant's too cold. Therefore, my thermostat needs changing. Whereas you could use your gauge. But again, that's not very accurate. Usually the gauges are kind of set up to not fluctuate that much. And that's a bit of a pain. The only way you'd be able to tell is through poor MPG or maybe another way, but this can tell you the exact values you need to know straight away. And coming on to that point, that also gives you data logging as well. And data logging is super handy. If your car's got a sensor, this will read it. So, for example, if you need to know your maths working, this will tell you what values your maths reading. This will tell you voltage, your lambda sensor, all these different sensors, how much boost you're running, inlet air temperatures, all these things. Now, most of these things aren't usually that handy. I mean, it's cool to have, but if you're fault finding, having data logging is invaluable. So I bought a W203 a little while back, and the reason was I was able to tell what was wrong with it was due to one of these pretty much. The owner at the time, he didn't read the codes. He just handed it into a garage and they didn't do a great job. So I plugged this in and it gave me a list of a couple of codes. From them codes, it could have been several different things. But with data logging, I could see that at a certain temperature, the boost pressure went down to a certain boost pressure. So it wasn't intermittent anymore, and the fact that it was, oh, I'm driving the car and boost pressure just lost. I could see what happened as boost pressure was cut. So what I found out was it was as the engine heated up, it shorted out some of the circuits in the turbo actuator. But I could tell now it was as the engine was hotter or warmer, it was doing it more frequently and when it was doing it. Whereas before, it just seemed random. But with this, because I had data logging on it, I could see, right, okay, coolant temperature was this, so the temperature must have been this hot, inlet temperature was hot, so it must have been getting more hot, and that's when the boost stopped. So it is very, very handy. There's loads of different apps for this as well. The main one you get is Torque. I've actually used one called Car Scanner, because, I don't know, I just thought that one felt a little bit better, but I'm sure it's all the same on the back end, it's just maybe the display that's a little bit different. But they're really, really handy. To have one for your car for between £5 and £10 is just, it is invaluable sometimes, honestly. You can clear your codes, you can read your codes, you can keep an eye on your coolant, you can keep an eye on, your temperature, your volts, your inlets, it's just so many things you can keep an eye on, and it's just handy to see that your car's running in a certain way. So, for example, in wintertime, it's handy to see, is your coolant getting hot enough? In the summer, to see, is your coolant getting too hot? Is the battery charging? All this stuff. It is really, really handy. And personally, I just plug this into all my cars because it's, like I said, between £5 and £10, so it's really not much money. I've always got my phone on me. You can do some other stuff, like I said, you can do some other things with this, but it's more gimmicky more than anything else. You can do supposedly 0 to 60 times, but I wouldn't trust any of that. It's all kind of rubbish. Use it as a data logger, use it as a code reader. For that, it's fantastic. And they're coming out with updates for it all the time. Like I said, it's quick, it's easy, and if it's in your car, you can just read your codes. I mean, if you've got to go out and get your codes read, from a manufacturer, it's going to be very expensive, but even from like a normal garage, it's still going to be half an hour's labour or something like that. Whereas if you got one of these in here, you can read the code yourself, Google the code, and just see roughly what sort of bill you're going to be expecting for something you can't fix. And if it's something you can fix, or something fairly simple, then you'll know how to fix it, and that'll save you a lot of time and money. Hope that helps, guys. Cheers.